I bought this thickness planer a couple of years ago, and I've been using it with the same blades ever since. And over the past few months, I've noticed some lines starting to appear on my boards. It's definitely not easy to see. I don't think you'll see that, but you can feel them. And they're starting to get pretty deep. So I think it's time to go ahead and change the blades on my thickness planer. I've never done this before. Hopefully the instruction manual will help, maybe not, but let's get to it. First thing to do is take off the top cover, and there's 4 bolts plus the bolt that holds on the handle needs to come off. Next, the cutter block cover needs to be removed, and that has 4 bolts also. And now you can see the cutter block is exposed and the first knife. There's 2 knives on this thickness planer, and it's held in by 7 bolts, so I have to unscrew all those 7 bolts, just enough so that that first cutter comes out. I just use a pair of pliers to grab one of those bolts. It just kind of helps to pull it out of there. And using my iPhone on Zoom, you can see what the problem is. There's quite a few chips along that edge. It's definitely not sharp anymore, so definitely have to change that. The new blade just goes against that carrier bar, and then I can just slide both pieces together back into the slot. Now there's little springs underneath that knife, so when I take out the calibration tool which came with my planer, I can just set that down, and I can see just by pushing a little bit that knife is sort of spring loaded. Now it's really critical to get the knife set on the proper place on the calibration tool. You can see where the red arrow is. There's this little 1 millimeter high notch on the tool, and you sort of have to put the blade on there very carefully because it's metal on metal. So but I found it wasn't really a problem. I was very careful, and it didn't cause any damage to the blade doing this. With the calibration tool pressed down, I can start on one side and tighten that bolt, and then I'll move over to the far side, and once I've got both sides tight, I can start on the middle bolts. And then I just rotate the cutter block until I can get to the other blade and repeat the same procedure. Once the second blade is on, while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and check the motor brushes and just make sure that the contacts are still reasonably thick and not worn out. And now I put the cutter block guard back on and screw in those 4 bolts. And put the top back on, screw in those 4 bolts and the bolt that holds in the handle. I'm also going to apply a little bit of wax on all of the metal surfaces just to make sure that boards slide nice and smoothly through the planer. And now for a quick test to see how I did. And with a pair of calipers, I'm going to just test in 4 spots along the board, making sure not to hit the spot where there's snipe, and it looks good.